Alright guys, back more. Let's go Elysium. What am I doing? I guess we'll talk to Measurehead, see if he has anything to say.
So, Big D's going to talk more with Hannah and Ozza about who he should nominate if he gets the power. But the bigger conversation is that, of course, now, Derek has all of the pieces necessary. He has Tiffany. He has, theoretically, Hannah. He got Ozza on board briefly, but she was willing to acquiesce. And he got Big D on board, but he was willing to back down. So now, really, with Xavier going into solitary at some point today, then what he needs to do now is convince Kylan. If he convinces Kylan, then Kylan will pull Big D, and he can get Ozza now. And this could happen. This very much could happen. Very unlikely, I will say again. I don't think he's going to get Kylan, but that's basically the whole thing. Now, Kylan is the only thing in his way with Xavier gone.
I don't know why I want to use this song.
So he's going to pitch to Kylan, spending a lot of time pitching to Kylan.
Should I just unlock all these?
As he's been doing. And he tells Kylan, he says, look, this is how I see things. If you vote me out, then everyone will see you over here with these people, Xavier, Alyssa, Sarah Beth, that you will be seen as a
oh, did I get 2 points?
And Kai's like, nah, no, people won't see that. Why wouldn't they see me over here? And he's like, because why would you vote me out unless you're working with these people? And he's like, that's so dumb. He's like, that's obviously going to be the perception. Kylan's like, I hate people sometimes. That's not how this works. Like, dude, you're mad that people see what you're doing? I don't understand.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I shouldn't have done that.
I want to be.
I don't know what I'm doing. Whatever.
Secret and then be able to reveal it all later. My grand
Didn't we
plan.
beat Measurehead? Why is he even still here?
So
I guess
Derek
we're just gonna continue talking to
the
people.
problem then is that if you are in that group, you are the first one gone in that group. You are only helping Xavier by taking me out of this game. And this is when he goes on to explain that when he was talking to Xavier and he was looking at the chess pieces of Xavier, he literally had the realization that, oh my god, this guy is going to win the game. He is positioned to win the game right now. And,
He's like, I had to move the pieces so that Xavier wouldn't see.
Yes, he was like, I didn't want him to see what I had done. Which is interesting because obviously Derek is not seeing
it's this person who doesn't talk.
Xavier's position to win this game. He's seeing a false version of the game where Xavier is also positioned to win the game, and that's, I think, again, because Xavier has not been super careful about maintaining the relationships necessary and keeping people in the right place so that they don't see him as this big threat. But he says this to Kylan, and this is important not because Derek is right about the exact path that this will happen in, but just more. I mean, so many people have been talking about you cannot sit next to Xavier in the final two. He will beat everyone, and this is just continuing to reinforce this idea that Xavier is possible to beat.
Is that one of those things where it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy where they just keep talking about it, and no matter how true it is, everyone's like, oh, you can't sit next to Xavier, that must mean he's super impressive.
Yeah, whether it was true when it started or not, it is now becoming a thing.
Just
where
because everyone believes it.
And if everyone believes it and he still gets to the end, then he must have done something impressive to get there, considering that everyone thought he could beat everyone. In the end, they still let it happen. That was my sequestration strategy.
Miss my family.
That's sort of it's continuing to reinforce that. Worth noting, but of course, Kylan is not really going to give Derek X much of this conversation.
You're pursued by smelling of
we've got a situation here. Xavier going off to solitary. Tiffany might push more. Derek might push more, but I just do not see Big D flipping without the go-ahead from Kylan. I don't see Ozza following through without Big D and Kylan, ultimately. So it's going to come down to, can Derek convince Kylan, and I do not see a scenario where that happens, because how would it even make sense for Kylan to vote that way if Sarah Beth, with Sarah Beth? The only way it would work is if Kylan doesn't vote that way and it's the other four that vote that way, and Kylan pretends to be on the other side of the vote, which is not good for Kylan in any way, because now it looks like he's not in control of the game, which he really cares about, and it's not, it's not something that is actually good for his game in any way. So it doesn't make any sense for Kylan to do this. I do not expect him to, and as Stravian says in the chat, even Hannah's not on board. So, this is not happening, but, there is...
Hey, it is Waffle Wednesday, and anything can happen.
How might I be of assistance?
All right, so there we go. That's basically what we have for you from the day. Mel, anything else you wanted to bring up?
No.
Let's see. It's nice. So I've enjoyed that they haven't been isolating the target when the person leaves, because we've seen that in future seasons where the big alliance is out in the open, and so basically it's like, oh, that person's leaving. Okay, don't talk to them, because otherwise we're going to find you suspicious. So it's been really nice here to be like, everyone's kind of friendly, and you don't have this like, oh, don't talk to DX or anything like that. So I'm enjoying, like, as much as I complained earlier about the camaraderie this season and how it's annoying from a game sense, it's been nice to watch from, like, I like watching humans be nice to each other sense, where people leave and it's usually on good terms, and it's just a game, and, yeah.
Yes, and honestly, this is more like, this is more like brigade style than bomb squad style. It's kind of a throwback in that way. And the brigade was kind of the same way. Because it's like each person has their person. That means that when those people go, they have somebody to hold their hand.
It's so depressing, walking them to the slaughterhouse.
Yeah. So that's what we have for you here today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll, of course, be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern to update on everything that happens today on the Big Brother 23 live feeds. I will be live later today on Twitch, twitch.tv/Aaron Armstrong, to watch the episode with you tonight. And then after the episode, back here on Robin's podcast, is going to be a recap of what we see. And then tomorrow, of course, another stream on Twitch for the Stock Watch, watching the episode, and then, of course, another recap of tomorrow night's eviction episode, where we will likely crown another new HOH as well. So tune in for all of that. You can also find me on Twitter at ArmstrongTaryn. Mel, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at YouCanMel. I think that's it. I'll just be agonizing over this week's Stock Watch with not many options.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us here today, and I will see all of you next time.
I didn't mean it in a bad way, but the sandwich is mine. I'm not gonna share it. And it's gone.
When the dissidents come to rape our country, he hides. But try to get a bite of his dear sandwich and he gets claws. We are a special kind of vermin, Gaston.
A man so principled about his sandwich calls for a principled approach.
So my Far Cry video is actually not performing terribly. It's at 57 views already. That's kind of a lot for what it is.
This right here is political.
I am not going to listen to this comic gunnery.
Yeah, it's funny considering this was like, what, 10 months ago, I think, when we played it. So I played the Far Cry games on the channel.
Yes, officer.
I really don't understand how my sandwich could. I would tell this lost comrade what the people's sandwich would be like. Distill the essence of the working man. The skepticism emanating from the Merry Senior could be sensed all the way to the Seminine Isles. He's not imagining it. I don't hate worker food. Look, officer, I like different classic food. Fine dining, not worker bags. Please, just drop it.
Sure, officer.
Alright, I think we're good with this then. What? Autosave. Why? Was that like deemed important for some reason?
We are still waiting for a replacement for the bull you sent seeking. Yes, the Debardiers Union pays me to stand vigil during the nights. I'm an old man.
Oh, that booth was
Don't sleep more
his.
than a few hours every night anyway. She is nobody. This is none of your concern, and I refuse to discuss my private affairs with the RCM.
The lady is Jeanne-Marie Beaulieu, and she sure as hell wasn't a nobody.
Yes, it does. Unfortunately, I wasn't working that night. Been on a 2-week leave since last Monday. It's a private matter. Nothing to do with your investigation.
You see, officer, René is the kind of man who'd rather die than admit he needs medical assistance or, God forbid, sick it. A real man's man is just gonna ride it out.
I'm fine, goddammit. Mind your own business. It's nothing. Just got to cut back on coffee. No one. The bus has been unmanned since last Monday. There's no other guard. It's just me. Yes.
Look, officer, the container yard...
The possibility of someone being in there is enough to discourage any ill-minded individuals.
Evrard created this job for René because he knows the Royal Carabiniers' pension of honor and PTSD isn't something a man can live off. A decorated kingsman collecting dirt reflects bad on the whole neighborhood. His words.
Can we conclude the topic of my gardens now? Yes. Like I said, it would be up anyway, so might as well keep an eye out. Keeps my senses sharp.
Should we do that? Okay, let's actually... Oh, can I not quick save? Why can't I quick save?
Guillaume Le Million.
Oh, why didn't I pick this? I'm an idiot, I was paying attention. Oh, wait, fuck it, no, I didn't. Quick save. Is it the 20th anniversary of Don't Make Cry?
I like playing in the dark. Sharpens your nocturnal instincts. Feels like being on...
Wow.
As René turns from you to his partner and back, the medals on his chest rattle and glare. He keeps his spine straight and his ribcage lifted, displaying them proudly. Two. The larger one is shaped like a cross, while the smaller medal resembles the sun. A crowned head in front of 2 crossed rifles. The medal hangs from a blue striped triangle. It's the Croix de Bravoure, Cross of Valor. The cross was the highest battlefield decoration in Suzerain's armed forces, awarded for exceptional bravery in the line of duty, in service of King Frizzle the First. A small blue star inside an orange sun. It has the word Valiant written below. The setting sun was a decoration used to distinguish seasoned combat veterans in service of King Frizzle the First during the Revolution.
For bravery. No. We were the last ones to keep all the baby killers and rapists in check. And let me tell you, son, if there hadn't been Royal Carabiniers, Revelshire might not be standing at all.
Whoa. Sounds like you're about to open the gates of conversation. This man will literally talk your ear off if you let him wander off to memory lane.
For doing my duty in the heat of battle, for looking my mortality in the eye, when men like Gaston here hid in the bushes and shot themselves.
He saved some muddy princeling who foolishly strolled into the front line in his gown of velvet and gold.
Fine. What is it then? It was on the first months of the revolution here in Revelshire. Unrest was spreading like wildfire. Marauders had taken most of the Coron and were getting really ambitious. King Frisel thought he could end it all in one decisive strike. Sent his cousin, Drisson, to put an end to the unrest. Alas, the young Drisson was all piss and no vinegar, wearing a tunic of purple velvet and cockatiel feathers to battle. Even his rifle was gold-plated, shone from 5 clicks away. Can you imagine the asininity?
He really despises that Drisson fellow.
To keep the long and bloody story short, Drisson marched us against the partisans in Coron. And when I say marched, I mean made us walk into captured enemy territory, single file, like toy soldiers, while he rode in front on his giant red stallion. The rebels were smart. They let us come real close before opening fire. Suffice to say, it was carnage. I got shot in the left shoulder and went down. Just a flesh wound. But just as I turned over, the prince fell into the mud next to me. He was missing his lower jaw. Then his horse, driven mad by the noise and smell of gunpowder, stepped on my leg and shattered my knee. Sure, yes. You can ask your questions.
Wait, didn't we already do
I
this?
grabbed
The bane of...
When I came to, it was all the Dink had taken numerous flesh wounds and lost a lot of blood. But despite missing his jaw, right. So I grabbed the prick and started crawling. Kept going until the 59th Cavalry picked us up. Through some miracle, we both survived. And the joyless freak convinced Frisel to give me a medal for not leaving him to die in his own blood. Piece and shit. He was the commanding officer and I was on duty. Just doing my job. Shouldn't hand out medals for that. 13 months later, I received this one for distinguished service. It's not worth mentioning.
You sense he's downplaying it. He did a lot more than his duty. More than anyone's duty. It's in his spine, in his billowing breasts, and untarnished self-worth. The old carabiner stands quietly like a
So
statue.
this isn't really anything. Whatever.
What Monseigneur Modesty is not telling you is that he crawled over 7 kilometers before the cavalrymen found him and Drison. And that even while crawling with a mangled half-dead prince on his back, he still managed to murder 3 rebels on his way.
Is that pride in his voice? It's deep down, but maybe even unbeknownst to the man himself, it's there.
Oh shit, I didn't mean to, fuck. I didn't mean to hit X, damn it.
I'm a man of peace, and these
fuck
kinds
it.
of bloody
Whatever.
heroics are only impressive to men like René himself. Certainly not to me. How did you find the story to be, officer? Maybe, but also bear in mind, officer. Oh no, you have to.
Do not speak of what you know nothing about, Outrun.
Do not speak of what you don't know, assassin.
Had no business leading men or even being on the battlefield. All
Fuck.
he was related. That's it. Royal blood alone doesn't make army commanders. He was a stupid kid, only interested in horses, hairstyles, and man-loving. 782 Royal Carabiniers are dead because of his incompetence.
Because I don't remember my ranking. Let's actually watch it. My Far Cry video. Because I legitimately don't remember anymore.
Before starting the process of making this video was Far Cry 2 and Far Cry 4. But through the process of making this video, I have now played 9 games in the Far Cry series. However, there will be some games that will not be included on this list, and a lot of the reason for that is because those games are essentially remakes. So for this video, I will be including the main games in the series, Far Cry 1 through 5. I will also be including the more recent spin-offs in Far Cry Blood Dragon, Primal, and
There were many such stories in those
so the
days.
question there for
Many
me
such
was,
men,
which
too.
of the older Far Cry games do I include?
Men with
Because
backbone.
essentially every game from Far Cry 2 on I am including on the list. However, before Far Cry 2, there was a really weird phase in Far Cry where we got Far Cry Instincts, which was essentially a remake of the original Far Cry, but toned down for consoles. So it was made more linear, though it followed a very similar story. We did get Far Cry
Officer,
Instincts
was there anything
Evolution,
else?
which was a sequel to Instincts.
You should try to
However,
come
in
up
doing
with a
so, it is
heroic
essentially
story of
a
your
new
own.
game.
Impress
We have Far Cry
this old
Instincts
soul.
Predator, which is a collection of the
Not
2
gonna work.
Instincts games
Unfortunately, the
for
Ah,
the
shit.
360,
stares at you
essentially being a
with a
remaster
frown.
of those games.
Doesn't
We have
look like
Paradise
he's buying
Lost,
it.
which is an arcade game that follows the Far Cry series. And we also have Far Cry Vengeance, which is essentially a
Please,
port of
don't.
Far Cry Instincts Evolution for the Nintendo
Son,
Wii. But through that, it also
don't know
added
why
in
you're-
more content. However, from what I understand, it's worse. So, out of all of those, what I decided to keep for this list, the only one that's going to be on the list from those games I just talked about is Far Cry Instincts Evolution. And the reason for that is because, again, that is a new original game, while the others are either ports or remasters of the same game. So because of that, I decided to just include the only truly new game of the bunch, and that is Far Cry Instincts Evolution. So this list will include 9 games here.
over 2
Let's get
minutes is for
started
that.
with number 9. And number 9 here, this is kind of a strange one, because normally you would think that with the series here that I don't have much experience with, now having played all the games, that one of the games I had played before
Excuse me?
going through this process of playing
I
all
don't
the
know.
games, you would think
The
that
most
game would be
talkative one?
relatively high on the list.
The
It's
what
at the
now?
bottom, and that's Far Cry 2. And
No,
for
you're
me,
not.
I just find Far
Don't
Cry 2
think that
boring.
way.
I mean, even when
You're
I was
just
younger,
a
when I
regular
originally played this
talkative
game,
cockatoo.
I just found
And
it
let's
so
leave it at that,
boring. And
okay?
to be honest, that's the
The
reason
woman
why I
before
never
you
went
nods
back to the
and
Far Cry
returns
series
to her
after that.
reading.
again, despite me being a massive fan of like Assassin's Creed and I like Watch Dogs and like these other Ubisoft properties, Far Cry was just a property that I never really took the time to deal with. I also didn't like how earlier on in the game, like when you start the game, you essentially pick a character, and for me that kind of takes away from the narrative of the game. So again, this could just be a personal thing. I mean, I think in terms of actual gameplay, like, is it worse than some of the other games in the series? Probably not. Like, it's fine. It's a fine game, but I just personally found myself bored by it. I don't like the setting. Narratively, I don't really feel like it does anything. Like, for me,
That's the bookstore, right?
really didn't hold my attention back in the day, and even now when I tried to replay it, same thing happened. It's here at the bottom. Now number 8 is the game I spent a long time setting up that's going to be on this list, and that is Far Cry Instincts Evolution. And this is kind of a weird game. Again, it is a more linear Far Cry game, largely due to the capabilities of the original.
Actually, I just want to say something.
And it's a fine game, but I just personally found myself bored by it. I don't like the setting. Narratively, I don't really feel like it does anything. Like, for me, this is just a game that really didn't hold my attention back in the day, and even now when I tried to replay it, same thing happened. It's here at the bottom. Now number 8 is the game I spent a long time setting up that's going to be on this list, and that is Far Cry Instincts Evolution. And this is kind of a weird game. Again, it is a more linear Far Cry game, largely due to the capabilities of the Xbox,
for anyone's head.
So is this everything that we can
in terms of
travel
gameplay,
to?
for me, like, I just found it fine.
All you
Like, it
hear
plays
is
like an
static,
older
but no one
first-person
answers
shooter.
the
It feels
call.
like what you would expect out of an Xbox game. However, it does try to be a sequel to the original Far
ring
Cry.
the
Like, you
doorbell,
get the same main
but
character. And it's
nothing
not like
happens.
at this point they were trying to make Far Cry a series
You
that had a
wait
story
for a minute
that
or
would go
two,
throughout all
but
the games.
all
So
you get
obviously
from the
that
call
was very
box
quickly
is
dropped.
silence.
I didn't think the story
No one
was
answers the
bad.
call.
I mean, obviously it's not to the scale of modern day games. I mean, a lot of modern day games try to
Looks
tell
like
these very
someone
complex
has
narratives.
melted half the
Far Cry
plastic.
Instincts
You hear
Evolution
static.
tells a very
You can
surface
almost
level
hear them
story,
breathe.
but I mean, it's not bad.
Yes, hello.
But I think in
This is
terms of
Tracy
modern
Henley,
day
Elysium.
standards, it's just very grossly mediocre.
Have you come to place an
So
order?
because of that, it lands at number 8 here. Now at number 7, we have a game
She
that fits into a
sounds
similar
almost
vein, though
antique,
it's obviously better in every
as if
single way,
her
and that's
voice
the
was being
original
played off an
Far
old
Cry.
wax cylinder.
And I did have some debate
The
with this
receiver
game, because I
must
did
not be
think there was
working
potential for this to be a little bit higher on the list.
Right.
However,
But
the
what
thing
happened
that
to
knocks
switch
it down
me
for
as
me,
the
again, this is
There's
my
no
own personal
transcendental
list, this is my own
electric
personal
lift.
feelings about the game. It's just that it's an older game. I mean, it's an older
Oh my
first-person
God.
shooter, and me to really get into a first-person shooter, I usually need other elements of the game to be really strong
I didn't
to
think
keep
I
my
would take
attention.
your
She
And
must
for
be
me, Far
mistaken
Cry
me for someone
is
else.
fine. Again, considering the time, it has a really revolutionary open world. Again, considering it came out in the early 2000s, it looks really good.
Who
And again, like,
cares
for me,
that you don't
narratively, like, I mean, it tells
Just
a
go
very
along with it.
B-movie-esque story.
Michelle,
But again, it tells a
just
story
please.
that's interesting. Like, again, it might not be the most
Why
complex
did you
narrative in
leave
the
me
world,
for?
but at least it
I
didn't
don't
bore me
understand.
like Far Cry 2,
You've been gone
or
for
even a
months.
couple of the other games that we'll be talking
I
about
thought you
very
didn't
soon.
care.
I mean, I don't think Far Cry is
Ever
bad.
since I
I mean,
came
again,
to
like, for the
here.
most part, I probably actually had higher highs with
As
this
if my
game than I
mind's
did
been
with the next
wiped
two entries
clean.
that we'll be talking about. Though for me, it does come down to the
A spot
gameplay.
of static
That is just something that,
overrides
for
her
me
words.
personally, I just don't
When she
enjoy
speaks
playing.
again, it
So because
sounds
that Far
like
Cry
she's
lands number 7.
submerged.
Now number 6 is a game that, from what I understand, is a very unpopular game within the series. Though I do think this game took some chances, and while it doesn't really succeed on a lot of them, I do think it's at
So
least
nice
interesting
to
conceptually.
be able to
And that
find
is
it
Far Cry
again.
Primal. Now obviously this is a radically different game from
She sounds
every
like
other game.
she's
It's
about to
kind of,
cry.
at the end of the day, like, when playing Primal, I still
doesn't
feel like
answer.
I'm playing a reskinned version of Far Cry 3. Like, yes, it takes
Silence.
place
The only
obviously
thing you can hear
during
now
primitive
is
times.
static
You play
and
as like a
waves
caveman.
washing ashore.
And again, while I
Another
think that's a
seagull
cool
passed.
concept, I think in execution it leaves much to be desired narratively. I think narratively,
Old
like,
cold
really
with
nothing of
a
interest
matrix
happens
of
here.
silence.
And while there's some cool
No
visuals and
one's
some
home
prehistoric
at full
sort of stuff
silence.
going on, it's like the overall
No one
setting for me
answers
just
the
doesn't
doorbell.
really work. I think a lot of that also has to do with
Nothing
the focus
happens
on melee
unless
you ring
combat,
the doorbell.
which is definitely not
Silence.
a strong suit of the Far
No
Cry
one
games. I
answers
mean,
your
also being a
call.
first-person
This
shooter,
button
you
looks
usually
new,
rely on a
but
lot of
someone has
ranged
removed
weapons,
the
and in this game there just aren't that many, so you spend a
Mm.
lot of time doing melee attacks, and it just doesn't feel as satisfying. So for me, this is a pretty messy game. Again, like, I think there's a serious debate for Far Cry 1 being above this, but for me, there are at least some modern gameplay mechanics mechanics within it that made it a lot more convenient for me to play, despite it not really doing much outside of the base gameplay, and even the base gameplay not being that great. So it's here at number 6.
Download the Domino's app today and become a piece of the Pie Rewards member to earn points toward free pizza. Get the new iPhone 12 on Spectrum Mobile's 5G and
Let's
post
do
a selfie
that.
every 2 seconds.
Now at number 5, we have a game that kind of annoyed me a bit. Again, this was another one in that similar tier as Far Cry 1, where I definitely think there's a debate for Far Cry 1 being above this game.
Actually, you know what? We might as well just end the episode here.
Far Cry New Dawn. And I don't think New Dawn is bad either. Again, like, it's a fine Far Cry game, but again, it just feels like a reskin.
In retrospect, I would have put Far Cry 1 above New Dawn and Primal.
Far Cry 5 is a game that we'll talk about, but it's very grindy.
Wait, it ends here. Next episode, continue on for now. Thanks for watching.
And runs with